So we're stumping the chump. We got our panel going. Was Jose out there?
He's late like usual. He should be on.
I am here.
Oh, there he is.
He snuck in.
Excuse me, but the wheels on the bus go through the town and right over you if you're not there, Jose.
Clearly.
So Justin's out there from UFP. Jose's from UFP. Jose's over at Stephen Gold. We've got a couple of people here from Coda Bears. Bruce is on from Larson Solutions, and Adam Jones from IDX.
He's running late. He's got a meeting. He's wrapping up.
Okay. So the very first question at the top was from Gordon Erickson, which I got to see if Gordy's on here. So I'm like, I got to be the one that does this. Because Gordon had a question in the November meeting for the Stump the Chump, but he couldn't ask the question because he got interrupted by the interrupting cow in his office. So I found a great graphic for it, Gordon. I had to put it out there. How you can personalize it without problems like the Kinetic system. How do you customize or personalize Kinetic, guys? Come on, Jose. I know you're in those meetings with Amy.
On the top, I'm trying to see what I can say. What can I say? On the top right of the screen on Kinetic, there is a little hamburger menu that you can click and personalize, and it allows you to hide and show columns and fields to your heart's content, as long as you have personalization permissions, just like you do today in Epicore. So that is available. The only thing that it does differently, though, is that all you can do is turn things on and off, columns on and off, panels or on and off. But that's really the only personalization you can do.
Right. And along with that, I'll say is I like how right now they do have to work on one thing, because you'll see the word description 5 to 10 times because they're showing a column that is a description of part class, product group, customer or something. It doesn't
give telling you which one it's in.
Yeah. So you will have to learn how to read between the lines.
Yep. And the guys are talking about version 11. Version 10.2.700 is a little bit trickier. Not all the personalization was available in there. Some of the Kinetic dashboards were from the 10.2.400 and 10.2.300 that migrated up to 10.2.700 but never got revamped or rebuilt. So they didn't have the new capabilities and features to them, so you weren't able to personalize them back in that version. So as we're moving towards 10.2.700 and then off to 11, which is in beta right now, you're going to see a lot of changes coming out as they're revamping even some of the old ones that were out there. Which is weird to say that, yeah, it's old Kinetic stuff. So Gordon, you can definitely look forward to this. Next one here was from Joel Davidson from QTS Package. Kinetic, since it's the future of Epicore and practical use of EVA in 700.
Kinetic what? Just Kinetic?
Joel, are you out there? By gosh, by golly, he is. And Joel, I'm going to unmute you. Well, I thought I was going to unmute you. Fred, can you unmute him?
I'm trying. Joel, you should be able to unmute yourself if you want to explain what the question is here.
I don't remember submitting that question, so I really don't know what that's about. So you can go on to the next question.
How about the practical use of EVA in 700?
You know, again, I don't recall submitting that. So you guys, if somebody wants to tackle that, they can.
I guess is that just the question, you know, what the use case would be? Like, what are people using EVA for? Like examples?
I don't
I
have
don't.
anyone using it, so it's very hard
Yeah.
for me to talk about it. Nobody talks to their phone asking it to send out a purchase order or create a sales order.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't have a question on it, so sorry.
Okay, no worry. I'll go ahead and pop down here. We had Michael Gross from Ashworth with a question regarding Dockstar automation, creative solutions, forms, and workflows. Have you guys done any, Jose?
Yeah, actually, we are in the middle of implementing Dockstar automation for our entire AP system. It has been enlightening, to say the least. But basically, what we're trying to do, what we're attempting to do, is basically automate our AP workflow. So we actually have something called the vendor database, which sounds delightful, except it's not a database. It's an email box where our vendors email us our invoices, and they call it here vendor database. So the vendors email our invoices, and currently we have a staff of around 30 people whose full-time job is to look at those emails, open them up, figure out what the heck the invoice is for, enter it into Epicore, AP payables, and process it. And so we bought Dockstar. We also bought Dockstar IDC automation, and we're currently implementing or testing. Actually, we implemented it, but we're currently testing a workflow that basically does that for us. It automatically receives those emails from the email box, pulls them into Dockstar, uses the IDC automation to basically scan or recognize the document, figure out vendors information, figure out address, figure out invoice amounts, and then it goes through and tries to create invoices in Epicore for us. And then it has an exception list that we have people to handle. So those people whose full-time job was to basically scour the email box, now their full-time job is to deal with the exceptions list. The nice thing about the IDC solution that we bought is that they do have some limited machine learning built in. So as those exceptions are handled, it actually learns what you did for that particular instance and recognizes that document again the next time correctly, allegedly. The hit rate is not great at the moment, but they are improving that. And we are actually seeing some significant improvements in that, but it works well.
Are you guys
Funny.
using that, Hassel?
No. Can you hear me first?
Yep.
I had to switch it. So we are actually using something called OnBase by Highland. Same concept. But I think, like Jose said, actually, I was going to say, funny enough, Mike Gross is actually our Dockstar expert on the forums, so he should know all this. But we, I think one recent use case that someone mentioned that we are trying to do is when a large company processes a lot of paperwork, even if you have plants in multiple states, each state has a county website where you get your electric bill, where you get your water bill, where you get the sewer bill, and each website is different. Each portal is different. They don't have APIs. They're old. So creating some bots that kind of go to all these 50 different county websites to download the PDFs and then OCR them into your system saves a lot of manpower. So mixing, I think it's a great solution when you mix it with some kind of automation where you have bots going to download all these invoices from these random portals that don't have an API, because we all seen the whole unemployment system, how good it works. And pretty much most of these websites are on similar systems. There's no REST API. So mixing that with Dockstar or OnBase and automating all that saves a lot of time. But I haven't used Dockstar, but we use something similar.
With the Dockstar automation, I've had clients do this with the AP workflows, and then we had one do it with the sales workflow, where they were getting all of their orders in from one of their major customers via PDF. So we ended up building a workflow to load that with Epicore.
Yep.
When that was in its first infancy of sales order automation.
As far as automation, I think Justin knows a lot. He actually implemented our whole Dockstar, and we do process, being a large corporation, I mean, a lot of invoices, a lot of checks. I mean, I can't even imagine humanly entering those in manually into Epicore. You just can't keep up. You just need like a staff of 20, 30 people all day long crunching numbers.
I'm going to ask a weird question, because both of you are from large companies. Why didn't you go to EDI?
Because the EDI requires the vendors to support it, and most other companies don't. They will not go on a single platform. That's the issue we have with all our vendors. So our business process is we have 41 plants in the US, and every plant has a completely different set of products that we make, manufacture, modify, ship, deal with. And so all our vendors are just scattered throughout the United States and internationally, and not a single one of them is going to specifically go to a platform that we choose. Some of the bigger ones, we are working closely to do more direct integrations. Like Boston Scientific is one of the big ones for us, and we're working directly to them to do a direct EDI type integration. Actually, we're going to try to integrate even more tightly than that because we're at 3PL for them. But it has to be a very large account for us to do something like that. Otherwise, it's not worth the hassle because most companies are not going to be compatible with whatever random tool we pick.
Yep. Same thing. Most people tend to still mail the check in a lockbox, and I think my problem even with EDI is it's supposed to be a standard, but it seems like there's no standard. I mean, it's like I can do EDI with this company and go to the other one, the same channel, totally different standards. Well, we don't use that field. We use this. I think the whole EDI thing needs to be retooled. Build an international standard. I don't know. That's my experience. I mean, I always thought EDI
everybody has a different flavor of what they call the ANSI X12 layout.
Exactly. And I think we kind of got lost in that shuffle. So
yeah, EDI is the one standard that, well, it's one of the many standards that wasn't a standard.
Yes, that's how I feel.
Yeah,
I've been supporting it since version 4 of Vantage. It's been a living nightmare.
Yep.
Next one we had here, let me go ahead and click. Greg over at Koima. Yeah, this is the second time you're coming up in one day here. Epicore functions. And then he also had, hey, what's new in the world of Dockstar, which we just kind of went over here. But Epicore functions, what's your take on these things?
I am using the heck out of them, and I recommend that everybody that's planning to go to 11 needs to get really familiar with them. Because Kinetic. So
what's your thought on I can give you a compiled function and you don't have the source code to it?
Right. Yeah. So that was a design decision by Epicore, and they've explained themselves to death at this point on it. So as much as I don't necessarily like that approach, I understand it. So yeah, just be careful when you do that. So that's the one downside. If you deploy a function using Solution Workbench, it assumes that you got that function from somewhere else, and it doesn't allow you to modify or look at or do anything with the source code of that function. I believe, this is my personal opinion, but I believe they're doing that so that they can make it easier for partners and others to start selling functions and doing a marketplace type of thing where they can sell the functions.
Yep, they're going back to 25 years ago where they customized the progress code, and every time there was a patch, you had to go back to professional services to pay for the upgrade because the CRC and progress didn't match.
Right. So yeah, if you buy a function from them or from whoever, right, you would have to go back to them to make changes to it, which makes sense from a development standpoint. But
we've just flat out told clients, buyers beware, make sure you get the source code when you buy a function.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you use it internally, my issue is not so much, I mean, we have a dev and I don't have a problem with import export. The problem is if you don't know that, then when you overwrite your production over test dev, you kind of, if your source code is in dev and you overwrite it with production data, you just lost the source code. So right. It's kind of a gotcha.
Yep.
But I think they chimed in onto the forums and they said that they appreciate everyone's opinion and they will actually look into it to see if, improve it so it fits customers' needs as well.
Yeah, my guess is that they're going to end up flagging functions to be like they do the customization layers, where you can flag a customization as a verticalization or as a base extension. And those are only available to partners or SDK owners. I'm guessing they will have the same thing. You can have SDK functions, and then you can have general customer functions that are different. But yeah, that is something to be aware of. And for what it's worth, I know they got a lot of grief on that on the forums, but that has always been in the documentation for the functions. It's just that we do not RTFM very well.
Yeah, I remember when the very first video of Epicore functions came out, and I remember sending it right back to Amy going, why was it in the last 15 seconds of the video that you mentioned functions are locked? I'm like, the entire presentation went, and then we'll flip this in, which is normally when people have already closed their browser and given up watching the video.
And what I would like just to see a little bit more consistency, like, I mean, like BPM's work, it's almost like I just didn't want functions to go away, just like configurator. If you compare the configurator to like the BPM tool set, it's night and day difference. It's like, what happened? Why didn't you guys just kind of be consistent? You could have used the widget designer and configurator, and apparently like two different teams that didn't talk to each other were responsible.
Yep. And Greg, I saw your post here that you had submitted the Epicore functions and DocStars ideas for sessions, not really Stump the Chump. So sorry, I kind of put that here in Stump the Chump. We will do an Epicore functions. It's just the software has to be released where it's functioning. In 10.2.700, the functions were really, really in their infancy. In 11, they're getting repaired and fixed, but 11's not going to be out until July, and our next meeting's not until August. So this is probably going to have to wait until August or November this year to do a demo on that until the software is publicly available.
Calvin, did you notice last time when we met, we had a weather disaster in Iowa, and this time in Texas? We need to stop meeting like this.
I know, this is crazy. All I know is I looked out the window today during the meeting and I'm like, why is it snowing again? I'm like, the snow mounds are higher than my car. This is ridiculous. Mark Olbrandt from Swiss Tech. For EDA, he would like to see a short demo followed with a round table so that we can kind of go over this. And also he wants to see more on EDD. Is this something you guys are looking, or someone's capable of putting together a demonstration of EDA or EDD?
I haven't really messed with either of those tools much.
Yeah, we have
The
purchased
EDA is a little difficult since that's focused software and requires a purchase, so we'd have to have someone that actually physically has that.
We own it, but we haven't used it yet because we're still implementing.
Yeah,
but I know Michael Gross, Mike Gross, he actually I think uses EDD, and he might be a good candidate for presentation.
I know Fred has done it before, but trying to get somebody else in to do the presentation or do it from a different perspective. Okay, and then the ever infamous, we want to see something by Hasso or Jose.
Something.
Huh.
You have to have something on your desk. Can you just wave it on the camera for everyone?
Oh, I see.
Actually, I do have something that I'm working on in here. Let me see if I can set it up.
Oh, I was just meaning something physical on your desk. I mean, you're in your office.
well, here.
I have my Oculus Quest controller.
Okay, I was like, here's my AirPods.
Yeah. If you use the computer as much as I do, I hated this mouse for a week, and now my entire carpal tunnel pain is gone. It looks weird.
Really?
So if you buy the Logitech, it's $8.
But it works well.
Yeah, it works well. So now they make me work overtime even more, unfortunately.
Then they make you work overtime. Yeah, that'll fix the problem.
Yeah.
And then again, functions popped up again. This was in so many inquiries that came in. And then also importing external databases into Epicore. This came up repeatedly as well. People trying to take external data, and I know we don't recommend putting it in the Epicore database. We recommend putting it in a parallel SQL database that you set a trust between the two. I don't know where we recommend putting external databases directly into Epicore.
I mean, you can use the external BAQs, right? Those are available and they work well. But outside of that, I wouldn't recommend putting data directly into your Epicore system. Actually, a warning: we are one of the few, I think, people that actually use the SDK extensively for a modification, and we're actually went through CSG, and they wrote the whole thing and installed it and made it and all sorts of wonderful things. We have a whole bunch of new tables in our system and everything. And even though it was written with CSG and within Epicore and with the SDK, when you upgrade from major version to major version, one of the things that the admin console setup does is it drops and removes any procedures in your database, any functions in your database that are not Epicore ones. So every time we do an upgrade, we actually have about 20 something store procedures that do things like get by ID, get rows, all the standard business logic calls, right? They're named properly, they match the Epicore nomenclature, everything was done by the book, but it drops it every single time. So don't put things in your Epicore database because you don't know when it's going to go bye-bye.
And as we found with other customers, when you try to upgrade, it doesn't even tell you there's an error. It just hangs indefinitely and dies. So we never recommend adding things to the Epicore system. Add them to a secondary SQL database, set up the trust relationship between the two databases, and then add your external BAQs.
Right, correct.
Yep, that's what we do as well. We got a separate database sitting on the same instance as the Epicore database. And it's been working well even on SQL Enterprise with the whole always on and replication. And we haven't had any issues. Even it seems to be working well. I was concerned about that. Is if I change the code here, do I have to go to all the replications and will it work there? And no issues doing it that way.
Yep. So I would definitely recommend against that for now. It doesn't not a good idea.
Just a second here, guys. So Tim Cooper's asked if we store data from an old system or previous CRM and SQL Server, will that get blown away when we upgrade Epicore? To be clear, what we're talking about that gets blown away is if you put it in Epicore's database itself. If your CRM is in a separate database, it can still be on the SQL Server. That'll be just fine. It's when you put things into the Epicore database, that's a big no-no.
Yeah, correct. There's no guarantee. Epicore doing a major upgrade, like going from 10 to 11, they could say, hey, we'll take all your data, we'll seed it in an interim database, we'll blow away your entire database and rebuild it from scratch. Like they don't care about your tables,
Exactly.
No, frankly, nor should they, right? They tell you not to mess with it, so don't mess with it. That's a mistake that a lot of people make is, modifying the Epicore database directly. That's why I always have my motto, you don't touch Epicore's database at all for any reason whatsoever, unless you absolutely have to. That's what the business objects are for.
One little detail. Functions.
Functions, and no functions. I can show you. You said you wanted to say something I was working on, so I can show you what I've been doing to prepare for Kinetic, if you want, real quick.
It's not 11, is it?
No, I cannot show 11.
Okay, I'm making sure to cover ourselves legally here. I'm like,
no, I am on their NDA with 11, so I can't share 11, even if I wanted to. But
there's Brandon again.
There's what?
Brandon Anderson. He's on your screen.
Yes. What are you looking at? I don't see him.
His pop-up is showing up on our pop-up. Anyways, hi, Brandon.
That's funny.
Yeah.
All right, I'm trying to figure out how to get my right monitor. There we go. Is that right? Can you see that now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is actually just something that I'm doing for fun, just to get myself up to speed in the technology. So I'm using Angular and Node and things like that. And so what I'm doing, I'm trying to write a web-based admin console system. So basically what this allows us to do is have anybody in the company that has access to it visit this app and regenerate data model, recycle app servers and things like that directly from here. So you can just come in here and start a data model regen process, and basically it goes out to the Epicore application and just starts generating the data model from a web app, and you can do multiple ones at once, so you don't have to wait around. We have 13 different instances of Epicore that we manage because of our development team is pretty large. So if you need to deploy something to all the instances, it's easier to do it in something like this. So that's what I've been doing, playing with. So my recommendation for the Kinetic coming up is, if you are like a C# type of person or a developer type person, get familiar with the technology stack that Epicore is going to push out. So this is Angular application front end, and the back end is Node and .NET Core. But just a fun project.
I think I did hear a rumor a while ago Epicore was working on a web-based admin console, hopefully, but
yeah, they were for a while. I don't know if
they for a long time. Yeah,
right.
It's been like 2 years.
Sell that to Epicore.
So, yeah, so I don't blame you making your own.
Yeah, it's just we like I said, we have 17 different databases scattered around 7 different servers, so it's a pain in the butt to go to each individual instance and hit generate and wait for it and then recycle the app server. So when I'm done playing with this, I should be able to not only generate, which that part is already done and working, but I also have app management, so I can go recycle app servers directly from here too.
Yeah, because especially if you have multiple app servers, then you got to at least recycle all of them to make sure they got the latest data model built.
Exactly.
Awesome. So you're going to send that back to Epicore, and we'll see this as a software.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, you should go learn Angular, go learn Node. It'll be useful if you are a developer type.
Okay, Pete Mazik over at OCM is looking for coding for everyday issues. Any tips on where to go get coding or samples other than the E10 help? Where to pick this up for the average layman?
I mean, read the manual. I guess the Epicore has a programming manual. I think they call the Epicore 10 Programmer's Guide, which covers
the customization guide or the programmer's
No,
guide?
it's specifically called the Programmer's Guide, and they made it so that the 4GL folks could move from 4GL to C#. So that's available on Epic Web. Is the Programmer's Guide. It's got a bunch of examples of how to do several things. But other than that, there's the customization guide, which is somewhat useful. There's got some samples in there, but very specific. But your best bet are going to be the communities, the EUG, the Epi users, E10 help. Those are the best places.
And if Insights comes back around, the customization to the max.
Insights, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Insights is a great tool. There's usually a bunch of technical folks from Epicore presenting. There's usually me or Hasso or a couple of us that present to as customers. So you can pick up a lot of information from Insights. That's a great tool if you can get there safely and vaccinated and everything else.
But I think the ultimate thing is on, I think, the right path. You just got to sit at home and do homework. Just spend a lot of time building stuff and taking your time. And I know you can't sometimes do the work when it's all the fires everywhere. You just want to get the problem fixed, but you gotta when there are no fires, you gotta set time aside and just build something and take your time. And point being is learn by doing. I mean, everything I learned, I usually start not by reading a book. I start by simply trying and failing 100 times and until I get it. And then I open the book and say, oh, the answer was right here, page 1. Crap.
That never happens.
Pick a project to work on. That's why I'm doing that management API web app, right? There's no need for it. I could do everything else manually, and there's actually a person in our team who is dedicated to generating data models and recycling app servers because we do it so often. So I could just say, hey, person, do this, and they do it. But I was like, well, I want to learn the technology behind XYZ, and I want to solve a problem. So just pick a project, make it your pet project. Your 20% time or whatever, like Google says, if you have 20%. Some of us do, some of us don't. But pick a project, work through it, and that's how you learn. You learn by making mistakes.
And the other thing that has helped me a lot, obviously, even on the Epicore users groups and so on, is try to help other people. Like sometimes people ask a question, I'm like, I don't know the answer. Let me go see if I can find out. I'm curious. And then by helping them solve the problem, you're kind of learning. And
yep.
And I just
Norm Hutchins through.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
When I'm, trying to figure out a solution, I actually go back and look at a lot of fields and things in Epicore, because sometimes you can actually do things without having to program. You can go in and look at the different fields and say, oh, I didn't realize this did that. So, you know, just test out what your actual Epicore application is doing. And sometimes you can resolve very quickly and easily something that you're really trying to do. You don't have to actually do programming because it's really there and you just didn't realize it.
I
And,
definitely agree, Beth.
and the one that says how to force users to enter correct data in correct spots, to me, that answer would always be, it has to be a company culture of accountability and the training. Like, your company needs to give time and to train those users. And I know, like, we have a lot of customization. Hey, we can prevent this by just coding. Like, no, that's not code. It's a checkbox. Teach them not to click it. If you click this
same thing,
checkbox, here's
Hasa.
what happened.
We had the client that said, oh my gosh, every time they enter a PO, they put a $0 price and then they approve it. So, okay, we'll write a BPM for you that doesn't allow a $0 PO and the approval checkbox. So we wrote the BPM.
Yep.
Within 5 minutes, they built a bigger idiot. They put the PO in for a penny. Poof, just went right past our BPM.
Exactly.
So there is no way to stop stupid from happening.
Or if you got a lot of message boxes, most people, even me, is like, oh, it's that message box again. What does it mean? No one reads that. It's okay. Just keep going. We don't have time for reading. But the point is that you know, hold your people accountable. Double check. I mean, I don't submit an invoice or a PO to a customer unless I read it 3 times, because I'm afraid I fat fingered a number or something. I don't know. Just
right. And you can't build a better mousetrap to stop that from happening. You have to hold your employees accountable. You're hiring them to do a job. They need to do it properly. I keep preaching that time and time and time again here. And I'm like, you know what? I could spend all my day writing BPMs and things to stop people from this and that. Why do we have to do this when people know what they're supposed to do? And you just need to hold them accountable and have discipline.
Yep.
Now, if you need to turn logging on to capture who's changing or who needs that training, you can definitely turn that on, but I wouldn't recommend it. I've worked with customers that have full logging turned on because they're medical or they're military first tier. Yeah, they're going to turn on full tracking just as a CYA. But it also expands their database and it grows huge very fast. So that's not something I'm going to tell somebody, turn it on and leave it. Do it until the problem is fixed. Use it for the tool it is. Track who's making the mistake.
Well, some of it, you know, back to Beth's comment too, is on the forms. You know, one that I like that's out there is the extended properties too. Make it a required field, and so that's a slick trick. And a lot of times it could be that simple instead of writing code. Like you have to have a part class and a product group on every part you create.
Yeah, need by, ship by, date, and so on. Because you can leave them blank, and we make them required because people are leaving them blank. So
we have a question from Norm Hutchins that just threw in on the online. They're upgrading this summer from 10 to 400. Would we recommend 700 or 11?
Personally, I would recommend 700.
I would not run to the first version of 11 and be the guinea pig.
Yep.
This is a major update. It's not a small one.
Yeah, it is like a major, and I think there'll be a lot of, I know Epicore says they do control release. I'm sure they do. However, I don't know if a lot of the bugs are caught in those controlled releases. I'm sure there are a lot, but I don't think as many as I would like to think there are.
Controlled release is a translation for cloud clients first.
Right.
Well, some of us are part of that too that are on premise, but the I would be fine with 11 as long as you're not planning on going full Kinetic. So they aren't, as far as I've been able to tell, they aren't changing much of Epicore core code logic, right? The 11 push is a UI change mostly, and so I would personally be fine going to 11 as long as you are not planning on going to 11 and also deploying everything on Kinetic at once.
That might be tricky for you also.
Sorry, we're going to be doing that upgrade. And what we're going to do is we're going to 700 first. and we're going to let our employees get used to 700 because there were changes made to start into Kinetics there, and just get them used to it before we dive into 11 and say, oh yeah, by the way, now everything's changed, because people hate change. So
They do.
if you take the baby step and you let them sit there for a little while, it'll be much easier to go up to 11 than if you just dive right into 11.
Yeah. Funny thing about that, we actually started at one point, we just changed the theme, and there was ton of complaints, but like, we're gonna get you used to the light theme. That's the step one. Because
Yeah, you
you're
have
right,
to take
people hate
baby
change.
steps.
But
Yeah.
then the help desk got flooded with, no, I want that dark theme. My eyes hurt. I gotta look at it for 8 hours. It's like, okay, everybody gets the dark theme again. You're right.
And our plan is to go to 11 in August, September, and we're actually going to skip 700 because of that same reason. We didn't want to introduce disparate interfaces for our users because our users are very, very change resistant. And the current Kinetic in 700 leaves a lot to be desired for, particularly in performance. So that's why our approach is going to be, we're going to go to 11 Classic, and then we'll eventually get to 11 Kinetic once we have had time to let those bugs come to the surface. And plus we have,
customizations.
a bazillion customizations to upgrade.
Yeah.
So, and we don't want to introduce them to anything Kinetic until Kinetic is at the level it should be. And from my experience on 700, Kinetic in 700 is barely usable, even for the reports and things like that. It's just the performance is abysmal. It's a memory hog. It causes a lot of issues. So I wouldn't recommend going to 700 Kinetic at all because the performance there it's dreadful.
And we had a couple where you open the form with, and it opens in a different company, and a couple other things where the session doesn't go correct.
There's no right click open with. There's a lot of things that don't work in 700 in Kinetic on purpose. They're not there. They were never part of the release. But I know that, at least from my user's perspective, if I give them a report, for example, where they have to filter by customer and the UI is completely different where they're used to, they cannot do open with to get to the customer entry screen, they're going to balk, they're going to reject Kinetic as a whole, and they're going to never want to look at it again. So that's what our approach is going to be. You don't get to see Kinetic until Kinetic
is usable. Yep.
And the other issues, like larger.
I agree with that.
Well, the challenge, like larger companies have that most of us, we write our own end user procedures. So even though Epicore has the help file and the books, it's like, no, we have a policy writing and a work instruction writing department. We write the instructions, we create the screenshots. None of those are going to be usable if I switch to the Kinetic form. It's like, hey, click this button, go under this tab. It's like, what is he talking about? So even rewriting all of those work instructions, if it took you 2 years to write them, it'll take you a year to rewrite them. Or you don't rewrite them. But typically, corporations seem to be doing that. And I know Epicore offers like the video service and their own LMS. However, corporations that customize to their business needs tend to say, no, we need to write them based on our process. And they kind of start reinventing the wheel. We used the Epicore Knowledge Mentor. I mean, if you made 100 videos, 100 timelines, it's all useless now. So
you have to remake 100 videos.
Yeah. I mean, no matter what, when you do upgrades, you still got to revise them sometimes. But I think the major change, like total interface change. But I think it's needed. I think it's the right direction. I think once it's worked out.
Okay, what else do we have? BPMs, more detail on subqueries and BAQs, embedded dashboards and customizations. We kind of hit that with the dashboards today and the BAQs that were covered in Fred and Dylan's session. And I know Vaughn will cover BPMs again and again. This is an ongoing topic that helps people. Ken Nash from Embed Tech. Again, more coding type things.
And just suggestions for future topics, right?
Moving customizations to the server, what does that mean? Server side versus client side?
Yeah. I think that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's here, but basically, because Kinetic is moving a lot of the ability to customize with custom code, Epicore is recommending that you move your logic to the server side via functions or via BPMs and things like that. So take a customization that you maybe put in a UI today, and take that logic and figure out a way to make that same thing happen, but happen on the server side. I think that would be a good topic. Actually, I just went through that doing some of my 11 testing. I had a customization that I was trying to convert to 11 to see if it could be done, and I had run into the problem. I had some logic on the UI, and I was like, crap, how do I do this now? And I found a way to do it, but it takes a little bit of kind of changing your mindset, moving the logic to the server.
I think one good example.
Go ahead.
One good example is it seems to come up often as someone says, "Hey, I need to write this file out to this UNC path." Okay, well, if this customization runs under MES, that means I got to manage security using Windows securities, right, on the folder. Who can access it? Who can't? So the best route is you call a function or update be a queue or whatever, and have that write the contents to that file. Basically, you tell the function, here's the file I want to write to, here's the path, and here's the contents, and it could write as the Epicore service account because your IS or a task agent runs as a Windows service account, so you get to control a little bit better. But again, it's a mindset. You got to think that way. It's like, why should hundreds of different computers VPN into our network all write to a log file? Well, how about the server only writes and they tell the server? So just like Jose said, just a mindset.
And unfortunately, Ken up there at Embed Tech, folks inheriting code need help in this area. I totally agree. When you end up starting a new job and now you got to go through, what did they customize? What's running in here? How do I have to support this? How do I have to maintain it? It's always, there is no easy solution for that. It's a case of just getting your feet wet and figuring out, okay, what all's going on here? It's going to be part of your kind of onboarding and discovery.
Yep. Sometimes even rewriting, if it's something that is like difficult to maintain and add more to it, you just gotta, once you learn a little bit more of Epicore, like a year or two in, kind of say, okay, how can I rewrite this and build it better? And I know they say if it's working, don't change it, but at the same time, it's like, well, then tomorrow. What always gets me is, hey, Hasso, can you add this checkbox or something, right? Yeah, that's 8 minutes, no problem. I go in there, it's like, Hasso, 2 days later, where's the checkbox? Well, I didn't realize there was, 5,000 lines of code doing all these other things with that checkbox. It's like, and it's all written, and a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here. And it's all too many dependencies. Like if one collapses, everybody, So
I love going into somebody else's code and learning they used acronyms instead of variables. And you're like, what does that mean?
Oh, yeah.
We love using acronyms over here. We actually started a spreadsheet with a list of translations for acronyms, because when I got hired, this company has been around for a long time. And some people have been here working for 20, 30 years. And they keep talking about, the AC and the SM went to the SQR and then the divided by the pi. And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
So I actually have a spreadsheet with all our acronyms. So when I'm in a meeting, I can be like, oh, that's a sales manager, or that's a account coordinator.
Yeah, when I walk into different customers, it's like your acronyms totally change. You're in a different environment. But when you go into code, you shouldn't have to guess what's a CSV.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? Oh, customer state and zip code. I see it now.
Yeah, CSV. Yeah. I would have thought it's a CSV file.
Next one, we have Carlos Quintanello over at PSE, which is off in Belgium, I think. Technical management topics such as admin console, best practice, multiple versions on the same server, advanced task agents, and performance. I have seen customers with like 5 different versions of 10 on the same server. This is not a problem. You can have as many as you want running there. Each one is a separate install.
The problem is, if you're not using it anymore, get rid of it. because
Correct.
having the garbage around is just creating confusion and problems down the road.
I did
Good
some
housekeeping
one
is
issue,
good
I think, when I installed 10.1 and then was a 10.2, somehow that task agent didn't like the other task agent running. And I remember it because the admin console, snapping console, would only bring up the 10.2 task agent settings. I could no longer access the 10.1 because it didn't let me choose. Like when you add an app server or database, it gives you a little pop-up saying which version would you like to create if you have multiple. Besides the task agent, that one is almost like you're stuck. So in order to change the settings on 10.1, you would have to uninstall the 10.2 task agent. So just a heads up on that.
I believe they fixed that on some later versions because we have several instances of different versions, and they work okay. You just have to be selected. You have to be in the app server you're trying to modify. So now they made it in the admin console that when you select an app server and you click task agent settings, it is aware of the app server. So as long as you brought that app server in on the correct plugin version, then it will pull up the right task agent. But yeah, it was a bit of a hassle for a while.
Yeah, I had to. Yeah, that's good to know.
Oh, come on. It's back to the 10.0 and 10.1 when the client installed into the Epicore 10 folder.
Yeah.
Which one?
Yeah. And Epicore admin console best practice, though, I guess the only best practice is usually just, I know we like to add fields, just if it's, I mean, I used to do it during work hours to regen and recycle. No one gets kicked out. It slows everybody down for lag. But just be mindful if you like got MRP or anything running. Best thing to do is have an after hours window once a week or whatever every night, and try not to do that during work business hours. You could, but at the same time, and if you do it at 10 p.m., make sure there's an MRP running or anything. It will
back up.
It will actually knock it out, and it'll start dying.
Okay. Tanya Moore, this was the email that came in this morning. They recently hired an individual who's legally blind. I'm going to throw this at Hasso and Jose because I've never run across this where they've had to run this type of modification, or how do we handle the interface for this?
I mean,
go ahead and read, guys.
I was gonna say most legally blind people who are computer savvy, they use the on-screen narrator, and that is compatible with Epicore. I have seen it used and it works. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but if you are versed with the on-screen narrator, I mean, I've actually seen someone use the on-screen narrator to fully navigate a computer in an incredibly impressive way. But other than using the on-screen narrator, I don't know what other option would there be.
I know.
She's trying to embed it in the barcode.
Oh.
I guess
to clock the employee in and clock them out. They've got them clocking in where they embedded the employee number and the password in. But the roadblock is how to get them logged off since it's a shared computer.
I have a couple of examples that we didn't implement this at Stephen Gould yet, but over where Rob Busick works, they actually changed their clock in and clock out to use RFID tags. And basically via a simple customization, what they did is as long as the card is present in the workstation, the employee is clocked in and working. When the employee removes the card from the presence of the workstation, it actually clocks them out of the computer instantaneously, because they work in a very high turnover environment where employees are coming in and doing some work and walking out and coming in, and they didn't want somebody accidentally, because they're a medical company, they didn't want somebody accidentally being under the wrong username or the user employee ID to work. So they just basically, it's a fairly simple customization actually. I helped them with it, and all you do is basically, when you have a card reader present at the machine, when they put the card in, it raises an event on the form that says cards present, that reads the information out of the card. The information contains the employee ID and things like that, calls the clock in function. The employee can do the work. When they remove the card, another event is raised, and then you call in the clock out function. It does require customization though, but that works really nicely. Not for a blind person, but just in general, and that would be something that could work the same way.
One thing The one thing I can think of is I think in WinForms on buttons you can bind a shortcut like a hotkey, like let's say Shift 3 whatever. I wonder if you were to, with the customization, assign a shortcut to the clock in and clock out, and then make a barcode that sends Shift 3, for example, Shift F3, whatever. And then you simply scan that, it will just send the keys to the form, probably triggering the button maybe. Just a thought.
Tanya, if you're online, go ahead and answer into the chat, or Fred, if she's online, if you can unmute her.
Or even if it wasn't a barcode, but kind of knowing where the shift button is, and I don't know if the F keys are on top, maybe just kind of say, hey, Shift F2 is your clock in, Shift F3 buttons to the right is your clock out, something like that.
Tanya's not on the session actively right now.
Is Vaughn out there?
But I also think, you think Kinetic makes this a little bit easier, right? With the web being accessible, web technologies, a little bit more for handicap accessible tools, right?
I've worked with like barcoding, but external applications that then ran scripts when the scan was done. So that I could see where you could automate and then make sure that Epicore is the application that's being called. This is the function we're passing. This is what we're doing.
Yep.
I would could do a customization and have MP3 files that played a little sound. Customization triggers an MP3 file and plays a little sound, each meaning something different, probably.
Okay, Tanya is online. Tanya, I just allowed you to unmute. Yep, you got it.
Hi, I'm here.
Yay, Tanya, you're under a different name, but that works totally fine. We'll call you Jackie from now on.
Okay, sounds good.
It's probably a shared workstation.
Would those ideas work for you, Tanya, or?
Did you mute her?
I don't think I did. Tanya, we lost your audio. Okay, you're back. Let me see if I have to unmute you again. No, you should be able to unmute yourself again, I think. There you are. Try now.
Okay. Yeah. Are you thinking just a hotkey function would work, or do we need to do something with the function keys on the keyboard?
Well, what we're wondering, is Epicore the application that's running on the terminal when they walk up? Or do we have to make sure that Epicore is even the application that's running?
No, MES would be on all the time.
So we just need to make sure that he or she can log off or log on to Epicore? Because the same way that you have the tag scanned for clocking them in, we could do a log off.
Yes, that's what I would like to do.
But we would probably have to put like some type of audio in there, like, okay, we can't clock, you didn't clock out of the job. So I can't clock you out of the system because Epicore won't let you.
All we are trying to do is get him clocked in to say he is present and clocked out to say he is going home.
Ah.
Okay.
So no job work.
Then you can embed that in the barcode on the clock out, the same way that you embed the codes into the barcode for the clock in.
Okay.
Because you're passing the clock in, the picking the shift.
Yeah,
because there are a couple of windows that pop up when you clock in, and then I don't think there's there's no windows that pop up on the clock out function.
Nope, nothing.
No.
You could do a hotkey.
I think the
I don't know
challenge
if
is
it's
that
MES.
I think the challenge is that they scan into the text field and that automatically triggers the clock in, but the clock out is actually a button to the side, right?
Correct.
So
but the clock out, if you hit the Alt key in MES, the clock out button has a letter that's underscored in it. All you have to do is send the Alt in that letter. The clock in button is a different letter that's underscored on that screen, but it'll tell you what the key code combination is. Alt and one of the letters on the keyboard to clock in, and there's an Alt keystroke also for the clock out. And you can pass those embedded in the barcode.
Okay.
Alt keys are available, and you're using code 3 of 9, right?
10. I don't know.
So the vertical lines.
Question? What's your question exactly?
What barcode schema are you using, Tanya?
I think it's what you said, code 339. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it's a bunch of vertical lines, no letters in it. It's not square.
Correct.
Okay,
So clock out is Alt O.
Thank you. So I knew someone would have the MES screen available.
Alt L is clock out. Do we
There
have
we go.
log out?
You want for logout? Well, login is L, so I guess I can try to log in and see what it turns into.
And to
It's going to pop up that shift window.
Yeah.
Now,
So
each scanner manufacturer is going to have a different code to get to the Alt key.
Yep.
So you'll need to read the manual for the scanner that you're using that scans the badge.
Okay.
But you're just going to pass the code for that Alt key and then the letter for doing the clock out function. And that's what makes up that barcode for that user. And then just pop that on their employee badge.
Okay.
That was a whole lot easier.
Yeah, just use the little shortcuts and just see if you can send a barcode. And as long as MES, like you said, is the active window. If someone were to click on a, let's say, desktop, it loses its focus. It won't work. And make sure it's focused.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
6 tech geekies to lead the blind. This is awesome. Okay, next one we got is John Myers over at Kennel. Looking to see a full session on Solution Workbench.
Oh, you feel like crying?
Oh, don't you guys have a Solution Workbench presentation from Coda Bears?
I thought we did. I thought there was a video up on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, you did. You did.
There's 1 or 2 of them, yeah.
I would say start there. I think there's a couple good stuff that you guys covered in there. That whole validation hash when it came in, and the couple new features.
And the living nightmare, you can't put database structure changes in with customizations. Not even going there.
You could.
Okay, next. Next one we have is Dave Height over at Ottenweller. BPM examples how to control the status of the request move checkbox in MES screen when a user is claiming or finishing their work. Bruce, I'm going to throw this over at you. This shouldn't have to be a customization. I thought that was a setting in company or site config.
Yeah, it's not your site config, but it's actually on the resource group.
Yeah,
on the resource,
auto move.
and specifically the resource is where you say auto move, and if you have that checked or not checked, and actually I think the wording's a little reversed, so you want to be careful about when you're picking that. But that's what I found with the request move. So it is. Take a look at the help, but this is where I'm going to say test it, because you can turn that flag on and off, and what drives it is the resource, not the resource group. I don't even know why they have it on the resource group unless it's for a default setting.
Dave, I hope that goes ahead and answers your question there. I don't think this necessarily needs to be a customization. This is a setting on the configuration.
And that defaults it on the MES screen. So what I always do is I make a default to false over there, and then have the user request it explicitly saying, I want to move this by checking it. But just note, and Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong, if I remember, that auto move checkbox is inverse on the setting. If you check it, it will not move it. If you uncheck it, it will auto move it or something like that.
You're right. That's what I mean. It's a little goofy because it is inversed. When you read it, it's like, well, no, that's not what I wanted, and it is reversed from what you would expect.
Yeah. So he might have it unchecked, saying, "Hey, I got it unchecked. I don't want to move." But no, you have to check it if you don't want it to be auto moved.
I think that's the way it is. Yeah.
Yep.
Otherwise, what values are changing, and looking at a post-processing method to always set the value. It would not be a post-process that you would want to put this on, because that's after it's already been written to the database. So that's not going to help your user. You want to make sure in a pre-process, this goes in the data stream, this getting committed to the database.
Yep.
Okay, and Vanla here, I'm not even going to try your last name, Vanla, over at Rockford Manufacturing. She has a question regarding the bank balances per closing date on the bank statement processing. Their reconciled balance is always 0. If you're checking in the statement workbench, if you're clearing the checks and clearing the deposits and marking them as cleared, it should be updating your reconciled balance, because that's what it's keeping in that statement workbench. So you have your opening balance, your reconciled is what you're putting in through transactions, your difference is what's sitting still out there, or your variance to handle. So I'd want to make sure that when you're in your statement processing for this bank reconciliation, that you're marking the checks as cleared, you're marking the deposits as cleared, and any adjustments you're marking as cleared, so that the reconciled balance should be updating. And let me see, is Vanla still on? You are, Vanla. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. If you want to unmute yourself.
Vanla, are you on still? Ooh.
Fred, who was that?
Vanla, are you on the call still? You should be unmuted. If you just need to unmute yourself now.
Okay, she may be away from the desk here. I'll go ahead and email her. It's in the video here, but this is a standard. The reconciled balance should not be 0. That's a whole lot of info. I'm going to let you guys read this one. I'm going to send this off to the more tech people.
The auto create code is treating by selection value as a field name. I don't think I had. So it looks like whatever you're putting in your calculated field, it is either missing single quotes or treating it as a literal column name. We would have to see the actual BAQ probably.
And I don't think they can share that with Cormark Metals. I think that was, Fred, you tried to email him, I think. Am I on the same one?
Yep, let me see if Mike's on the line. Just a moment, I gotta scroll.
Yes, he is. I'll unmute him. Mike, if you want to unmute yourself. You did.
Mike.
So normally I would have a BAQ with, like, say, a calculated field, and I wanted to select or use that as a criteria for selection. And I would go to my subquery criteria and put in that selection, which is what I did. And I was getting this error.
Are you putting the criteria in there in single quotes or no quotes?
I tried no quotes, single quotes, double quotes, double single quotes. It actually seemed to strip off the single quotes.
How about brackets?
Well, this is something that I've used in many other versions of Epicore. So it seems odd that this is popping up now. I don't know if it's something. That's why I was looking to see if this was maybe an issue with this particular.
I am in
version.
that version of Epicore. I'm looking at it right now. I know we use subquery criteria all the time to do conditions on calculated fields. So I don't know why you would be running into. I'm throwing something together here real quick to make sure that I'm not crazy, but I don't think I am. So you're saying so you add a calculated field to your BAQ like normal, and then it doesn't let you put a subquery criteria on that calculated field?
Correct.
Because it throws an error. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've not had an issue. We do that all the time. I think we even did this today with a super complicated double join, like.
And might ask, is this just you running the BAQ, or is this actually you trying to use a BAQ report that runs the BAQ?
No, this is just building a BAQ.
Just a BAQ.
Yeah.
I just did it. It ran and worked okay.
Yeah. What version are you in?
10.2500, same as you.
Oh.
Are you selecting that subquery, or are you actually doing a subquery criteria where you're not actually showing it on the field?
I'm selecting the calculated field or a calculated
Jose,
value. Then,
are you able to share the Stephen Gold BAQ?
Yeah, I mean, I just threw together a simple BAQ, but I'll share it.
Actually, maybe there's something else in this, but I've run into this a couple of times now, so I thought I'd at least ask. Now we're on 500.10, so I don't know if that's
500. Yeah, I'm in 500 to higher than that, 20 something, I think. But I don't. We've been using this. We use this feature a lot, and I haven't had any issues with it. So
okay.
I'm wondering if your BAQ itself is having other issues, right? Because sometimes the error you get back, even though it may seem related, sometimes it isn't really related to what the problem is.
Right.
So did you give me a there, Fred?
It runs without the filter.
It runs without
the
filter.
BAQ runs without the filter. I'm just trying to get it down to, and actually it's similar to the sales from a certain state, and so I ended up just building a subquery for the state rather than just.
Yeah, I mean, I just did it. Works okay.
Okay.
If you want, you can go over to Epi users and upload your query or a copy of your query or something. I don't know if you can share it, but if you can,
it's got UD fields in it, so I don't know if that.
Right. Well, you can still do it. We can pull the UD fields off and still try it. So I'd be curious to see what your issue is, because I'm doing that right now and it's working perfectly.
Okay. I just thought if maybe there was a known issue, I shortcut my.
Don't use any spaces in your calculated fields or anything like that, right?
And by the way, you don't need quotes. No quotes on the criteria, and it will strip the quotes out if you put them in there. But you don't need quotes. It adds quotes automatically.
And what is your calculated field name?
Yeah.
Do you know?
Good.
It is.
It's not a reserved word, is it?
It's ship state. SHIPST.
Yeah, that should be fine.
Because I've been hit a bit before where I named my field count, and it was like, what's going on? It's like 4 hours. Yeah. It's like.
So basically, we got to figure out, since we used a lot of one-time ship to and some ship. And
are you using a windowing function or the XML path function or any of those funky things?
No. And like I said, I don't want to necessarily take time. I just kind of get an idea if it's a known issue. I'll pick at it some more and see if
or just send it to Fred and Calvin. They can forward it and we can import it. It's easier when we look at it.
Here, Mike, shoot it. You got mine, Bruce at Larson Solutions.
Yeah.
Be happy to look at it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you can go ahead if you want, post it on the forum or something, and tag me or tag us, and we'll take a look at it for you. But it seems like it should work just fine.
Yeah. Okay.
There must be something else funky in the BAQ. Sometimes the error messages are not very helpful. We ran into an issue today where it was telling us that it couldn't find, and it had given us like 6 different errors, and the problem was like we were missing a quote somewhere, and he's the whole thing.
Yeah, and it worked fine when I flipped it into a subquery, so it wasn't like it stopped me. Just
right.
Okay. Let's see. Heather threw an email over this morning. The SQL MDF data file is less than 25% available. Space softened. This is going to be how to manage the server and maintain what's going on here. Seems to happen to them about every 6 months. Suddenly a few users, not everyone, say that they're experiencing any problems. Mainly shipping and finance departments will complain about Epicore being slow. Try everything, get it running faster. She runs the PDT. MDF file is only 15 to 20% free space available.
Can I
So
take this one?
manually increasing it. Fire away,
Okay.
Fred.
Okay, so the PDT, this is one problem I have with the PDT. It wants 25% available. Well, if you've got a 3 gig database, how much free space does that mean? That's an awful lot of space. That's actually unused space. So the percentage of free disk space or percentage of free space in the MDF, forget it as a percentage. You need to have some free space there, and you should have an auto growth set. And for Epicore, you should be growing not in a percentage, but be growing in an amount. And for your MDF file, that should be 256 meg. That will grow quickly, especially if you have instant file initialization turned on. So you're not going to slow things down. I do have one client, Swiss Tech. They grow by a gig a week. And because they grow so large, because they're using Configurator, on Sunday, we just have a process that literally expands the data file by a gig. So they don't have to grow while people are using the system. So we just we bite the bullet, let it grow in one shot. You can monitor the MDF. I can look up the query for you that'll actually monitor the size, but you can also go into SQL, right click, look at the, if you go to shrink the file, it'll tell you how much free space is left. So having 256 meg free on your MDF, totally fine. Also take a look at how much free space you have on your LDF file, your log file. I often see people, they're running backups of their SQL server, but they're never backing up the log file. And so your log file will continue to grow. And over years, that means you have a very, very large LDF file. If you never back it up, that file will continue to grow. That will slow things down. So make sure that you're also doing that backup there. You can automatically shrink your database, your LDF and your MDF file. Please don't ever do that automatically. Don't ever make that part of your weekly maintenance plans. The reason being is if your file grew to a certain size, you need to understand why did it grow. So if your LDF file is normally, let's say 50 meg, and it grew to 5 gig, what made it grow? What process ran that made that extra space grow? And is that something that's going to happen again? If it is, you probably want to leave your LDF file that size. If it was we just imported another company, we merged with somebody, we imported all their transactions. Well, yeah, of course your log file grew because you just imported everything. So go ahead and shrink your log file back because you're not going to do that again in the near future. You're not going to need that space. But it's not something you want to put on an automatic basis because you're going to end up, you'll use the system, it'll grow, you'll run your weekly processes, that'll shrink it, and guess what? Monday and Tuesday, it's going to have to grow again. If you just have it the size that you need, it's going to be there and available for use, and you're not going to be going back and forth, shrink and grow and shrink and grow. That's just taking up disk time and space. I think that answered all of them other than the archive process, which one of you guys will have to do, because I think there is an archive data, but it like destroys everything. It only writes summary records and you're stuck with the summaries.
It does. It blows away all your PartTran records and all your TransGLC records, and it basically summarizes everything down to the end of day transaction. So you lose the details for your data. So if you are like SOX compliance type of place, you don't want to ever run that. But if you are seeing like a huge amount of data growth and you don't particularly care to go back and look at your individual PartTran records from 10 years ago, then you can run that. But it is a destructive process that cannot be undone. Also, the reason why I had an extensive conversation about this a while back with Nathan Anderson from Epicore, and one of the reasons why the PDT requests that 25% available space is because back before SQL 2014, the auto growth process was incredibly slow. Microsoft added basically direct hooks into the hardware now in later versions of SQL, which you have to enable during install, but basically it allows immediate allocation of disk space. So the auto growth is significantly faster now than it used to be. So
you don't do it during installation.
Okay.
It's a setting inside of a policy. So you do it on the group policy, you reboot the machine, and that's the enable instant file initialization.
There you go, that's it. And I was looking for the name, I was like, I can't remember the name of it. So yeah, if you enable that and give permissions to your account, then your auto growth is magic and fast, and you don't need to have 25% of available space.
Yep. And the only caveat to that is the short version of how IFI works is normally SQL would go out, would ask for disk space, would write all zeros to that disk area that's been allocated, and then it would return it back to SQL. SQL can use it. Instant file initialization, it requests that disk space and starts using it. So in theory, if you really know what you're doing with SQL, it is possible to write a query where you can say, go to that exact spot on the disk, and you can see what used to be there. So if you're a DoD contractor, IFI is usually frowned upon because of that. But for most other people, they don't have anyone savvy enough that would be able to do that, and it's not a true security concern for them. But you should be aware of that. Heather, if that didn't answer your questions, let me know, because we did unmute you if you do need to get more information there.
Great. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, can hear you now.
Oh, okay. No, thank you so much. That really was helpful. Appreciate it.
Was it better than Brent Ozar's answer?
Well, if you guys didn't give me if you guys didn't give me a good answer, I was gonna go to him.
And by the way, if your database is growing a lot, take a look at your company maintenance. There is a checkbox in there called System Activity Tracking, and if you accidentally turn that thing on, your database is going to go insane. If you turn on that checkbox, which I don't know why Epicore still has that, but if you turn on the checkbox, it basically tracks almost everything that is done in the system on every table, on every process for everybody. And that table can get insanely huge. I've had, back when I was doing consulting, I had customers that were like, my database grew 3 gigs this week, and I go and I look at the sys activity table, and the table itself is 3 gigs on its own. So if you're seeing
I think PDT will flag that as red, I think, when you have that enabled.
Well,
right?
okay, perfect. Yeah, so if you have that enabled, turn that off, but that's it.
So thanks, guys.
Awesome.
I think that's a good, good write-up for all these questions. Appreciate that.
Oh, sure.
Heather's got another question, so don't go too far, Heather.
Okay. Sorry, guys.
And I know Mark Olbrantz from Swiss Tech talked about this in a previous meeting. What are people doing to protect against ransomware? Special insurance, cyber insurance,
insurance. Absolutely, positively, get ransomware insurance. You need it. I don't care what you're saying. Go get it. You need it. You want to have it. Get it. Also, make sure your backups are stored in a read-only mode. Once you take a backup, make sure that you yourself, no matter what you do, don't have the ability to delete those backups, no matter what you want, for at least 2 weeks. That is the most important. Most of the offsite backup places will now provide ransomware protection. Azure does. So make sure that, for example, if you go to Azure, which we use, and we take backups using the backup recovery strategies and all the magic of Azure, if we go and delete or try to delete a backup, it will delete it, but it will keep it for 14 days. There's nothing we can do about it. It'll just sit there for 14 days, no matter what we do. Make sure you have something like that. Because if your backup strategy sits on your network in any form or any shape or form, and you get hit with this thing, the first thing they will do is go after your backups, and you're going to be hosed, and that insurance is going to come real handy.
And I think VM pushes what they call the rule of 3-2-1. Have 3 copies of your data, have 2 copies that are not on the machine that actually does the transactions, have 1 copy that is not physically located on your network. And we've had a couple clients that have had ransomware happen to them. And what saved them is, specifically in one case, the lady literally took the physical disk out every week, takes it home. So because she had that, they actually had their Epicore database, and once they got the network cleaned up and the virus off of it, we could actually restore the database and here's your Epicore back. You're up and going again. But otherwise, it wiped everything and attacked everything on their network. There was nothing they could get that was physically on the network anymore.
What do you mean the lady? I still see you carry the drive out the door sometimes.
And the way they're getting in, you know, we have a lot of experience with this, particularly on the consulting side. And one of the ways that they're getting in is if you have a help desk system where your other employees are calling help desk and say, my doodad is not working today, and your help desk person is remoted into that machine to make a change, and they log in with an administrator account. That's how they get you. They put a keyboard. They're not doing any special magic hacking. They're not doing anything rainbow kittens. All they're doing is putting a keylogger on your end user, and when they call for the help desk, the help desk person remotes in and puts in the administrator password. That's where they get you. Make sure that your help desk has local accounts for each laptop or device that they access. So if Mark's computer is not working and Mark calls the help desk, there should be a unique username and password that is local to Mark's computer only. It should not be a network account. That is something that is trivial to do. They just got to keep a list of all the local accounts, on the help desk site. Because if you're using a network account to do administrative rights type of things on the laptops, they are going to take that keylogger and take a copy of your administrator password, and you're done for. So don't use a network account to do installations remotely or even locally. Just local laptop account for each account.
Did anybody hear about what happened to Epicore in December when they got hacked for their cloud?
Yeah.
They were hit with a ransomware, and they put 10% of what they hacked. It was an 18 gig download for people to just pull down. It was Epicore's cloud servers that were attacked. This was last December. I guess it can't be that long ago. It was only 2 months ago. It's just
Right.
a long winter.
My understanding it was, their internal, not their customer.
That was customer.
Now they came back and said it was internal. It wasn't customer.
And
I just thought they get hit with the SolarWinds hack like everybody else, because I know they were hiring a SolarWinds administrator on a job board. So I was like, oh, they got SolarWinds, so they must have been affected by that.
And early detection tools are very important too. I just keep, Brandon just reminded me of this. There's early detection tools like Canary. Canary tokens is basically a file that you drop in your network that if it ever gets access, it sends you an alert. Those are going to be lifesavers for you. I just posted a link. They're free, or they can be free. You can actually pay for them, but this is a free one. So I just posted a link on the chat that I'm sure Fred will reshare. It's called canarytokens.org. You basically can download a file, a Word document, an Excel document, a PowerPoint, whatever you want, with a special piece of code embedded in it, that if anybody touches that file, aka an encryption system or an encryption tool touches that file, you will get an immediate alert telling you that happened. Please, if you have access to your Epicore servers, generate a few Canary tokens, drop them on the C drive, drop them on the My Documents place inside the network service. Don't drop these all over. Some people take these tokens and they drop them on every computer in all their networks. Well, if you do that, then it no longer becomes an alert system, an early warnings detection system. It becomes an annoying thing because everybody and their mama is going to accidentally click on the icon or click on the file, and it will report that there was an issue. But if you put them in strategic places in your Epicore server, in your C drive in your Epicore server, just a more simple Word document, the first thing that these encryption tools do is they enumerate the files in a directory. When that file gets enumerated, you will get an email telling you that someone in your server is looking at this file. And if you buried that in an Epicore server, nobody should be in there, right? So you get an email right away, and you can immediately kind of yank the power to the box before you get hammered. And again, this tool is free. You can go to canary.org and actually buy some appliances that you can hook up to your network, which are a little more advanced. But the tokens are free to generate them, spread them through your network, and they're a great early detection system that could save your bacon.
Only if the bird dies.
Only if the bird dies. That's
Yeah. And I think if you have like Hyper-V or VMware, you can take there's companies, they'll take a snapshot and nightly and take it offsite instead of you programming SQL backups and so on. They'll actually do a full snapshot. That helps. But be careful and make sure you at least have a fire drill and validate those snapshots. What we had in the past happen is we got hit by a Bitcoin miner. Hey, let's go get that snapshot. Oh, well, we're only backing up your C drive. So, well, everything is on the E drive. The database is on E. Well, they're backing up the bare metals operating system. Who cares about that? So just double check always. So,
your Microsoft OS is very safe also.
Yeah. Until North Korea comes.
Hey, and if you're doing Epicore, now SQL Server supports Linux, so it wouldn't hurt you to put your SQL Server database on Linux and still run Epicore.
Yep.
There's no better protection than a system that they can't access. I had a customer who got ransomware, and you know what they couldn't get? They couldn't get their Unix systems.
Actually, I had
Yep.
one that got ransomware, and what they couldn't get was the Windows 98 systems.
Okay, well, fine. You can do that too, I suppose.
That's what saved them. Is some of their stuff was on machines that were so old, the hack couldn't get to them. And I'm like,
You
well,
can run SQL Server 2016 on 98. I want a video.
Awesome. Never a dull moment.
Another thing
back
to throw in there is internal training. I mean, users should, be wary of what emails they're receiving and expecting the attachments they're getting as well. A little bit of training goes a long way.
We have that little icon that says report phishing. We get these simulated phishing emails that have been, I think, cool. I mean, I haven't seen that in the past, but it's like they send you a fake email. If you click on it, it'll actually say you've fallen for the trap. So it's just random, right? And it
Yeah,
uses templates from like Chase Bank and
we had somebody in our company accidentally click one of those links and had to take training.
Oh, he admits it.
Yeah, then they make you take training. Like
They made me take the training. I was like, come on.
Oh, Jose. That's what we're signing up for, is a service that does the fish threat or fish.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
fish
think
threat.
it's,
And so they send us
there's a few of
emails
them out there. Yeah.
Users, yeah. We have yet
I
to
think
get our
that's-
report back, so who knows what's going to happen, but.
I
Can I
usually
back
click
If you
on
up?
want it programmed, go to Jose. If you want a virus to be spread around, go to Jose.
Well, they made me take the training, and I spent more time trying to hack around the training so I could get completed before I finished it, so I wouldn't have to sit through it.
Can I ask a
Awesome.
question? Just
Fire
one-
away, Beth.
Yeah. Jose, you mentioned the system activities checkbox. You're talking about the one that's on the company maintenance, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
And you said you should not have that checked.
Not unless you want to track everything everybody's doing on Epicore.
All
And
right. I will be talking to some people that I don't know why that's checked.
Yeah, that's going to make your
Very
database
much.
go crazy. Yeah.
Well, they were just complaining about our database growing,
Yep.
and they don't know why. Well, now
Yeah, if you do a query into this, I think it's called sysavt or something like that is the name of the table. That table is going to be gigantic.
Okay.
And by the
thank
way,
you
that
very much. I
table,
will
let's
pass
see.
that on.
Cover your ears, everyone. That table is not, a table that you necessarily need to worry about, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know exactly what
back
you're
it
saying.
up. Should not back it up. Okay.
Thank
And
you.
There you go. Yeah, sure. Let's go with that.
Fred, I'm going to route this over to you. I think you had another one that came in afterwards. I'll be right back, everyone.
Yep, we've got one more from Gina. How can a scheduled BAQ report be saved as a PDF or Excel file to a shared folder?
A scheduled BAQ report.
Scheduled BAQ report. She wants to save it as a PDF or Excel to a shared folder.
Did we do that before? Remember, we didn't have the question last time where someone asked if using the routing you could
Yeah.
save shared folder, and the answer was no. Epicore doesn't support that. Like you can save the PDF, send it to an email, and have a process take the email and then move it to a UNC path, you can add in report style settings. You can add there's a file prefix, but again, you cannot say save this to this UNC path. You would have to kind of like write a BPM when that BAQ report is printed or something that it. And I think in the new version 700, correct me if I'm wrong, they do support BPMs when reports are printed, right?
Yes. Actually, that's in
Processes
11.
are run. Yep.
That's in 11. That's not 700.
So the easy way is, if you have printing and routing, email it to some generic mailbox that takes it, and some other program reads the mailbox and saves it to a UNC path.
That's what Chad Blanchard had responded, that they have an SSRS break routing, send it to a mailbox, and then a process grabs it out of the mail and saves it to the shared box or
That's
shared
the
folder.
easiest way if you don't want to interject with BPMs and on a BPM on the sys run direct, whatever. Or do what others do, they hit print preview and then they save the PDF and then print PDF from Adobe instead of pushing the printer button on Epicore. It's another option.
If you have DocStar, you can use print routing to send the file to DocStar, and then that would be available on a network share, meaning it would be available in your DocStar system. So.
Okay. Calvin, there's one more. Do you want to hang out, or did you want to do a hard stop at 4? I forget what you said.
If people want to continue, that's totally fine. If people have to duck out, hey, we are at the end of the presentation. If people can stay, go ahead and keep running.
From Clifford Bennett, we have a lot of records in ERP.memo table. It looks like that is from job activity. Can't find a config setting that drives it. Any ideas on how to stop it? It's up to 7 gig.
Oh.
Is there a BPM writing to the memo table?
Oh, that's a standard BPM or standard thing that happens when it gets details.
Yes.
Yeah, that's standard. So
Is there a way to clear that out, or how do you deal with that, Bruce?
Well, as far as how you prevent it, I'm going to refer it back to you as far as to have a BPM to prevent it from writing.
Yep.
Unless you could do something where you just say delete it, because if you look at a job file, that's it's saying where it came from. Same with, I think on revisions, there's also something with a memo field. I'm trying to recall what that one is too. I think it is also the same, that it's getting details from something.
So like
What's
the
the
check
name
in,
of the
check
table?
out process. ERP.memo?
ERP.memo. I was just going to try and get data dictionary up here.
I don't see that table at all, so I'm a little confused. What version is this? I think it's eyes.memo.
Could
That
be.
would sound more realistic.
Yeah, it's eyes.memo. I think those are the memos. Eyes.memo is like the memo table where the memos that are stored when you click the little memo button in your system. So I don't know how that would be driven by the jobs. There is no ERP memo table that I can find. What version are you on?
It's eyes.memo?
Yeah, eyes.memo is the actual table where your memos are stored. So if you go into order entry, there's a toolbar that says memo, and you can type in some little blah, blah, blah message.
Comment and note.
Is that the job automatically writes to it when you do.
Does the job automatically writes to the memo table? Oh, okay, I did not know that. I don't see any in our system.
10.1.600 is what he's on.
Yeah, you could look where it says get details, because that's the text that it starts with. It just says get details, and then it says what was the source and.
Interesting.
Are you talking about the memo table?
Yes.
Yep.
I just caught bits and pieces because I was quickly typing an email to my team saying, why is this checkbox turned on? Please turn it off. So the memo table, we actually use that. It when you're doing, like, I think, was it Bruce or somebody that was saying, when you check out and check in your revisions, it always populates that. But you can also use it to add memos to different things. we have it for like our orders. So when we use it as like a sticky note that pops up when somebody puts in a certain part, it will tell them, oh, by the way, you need to also sell this part that goes with it, to remind our sales order team what to do. So you can have those things on it as well.
Oh,
And they could have a memo also with a directive being
Yes.
done.
yeah.
Yep.
So I would check if there was a directive written, Cliff,
Yep.
and possibly disable that.
Yeah, because either that or, yeah, look
Okay,
at the
thanks.
directive
Yep.
because it's not working.
Allegedly we looked through all of the BPMs and nothing was writing to it, but I mean, it could have gotten missed, right?
Yeah, if you look
Yeah.
at that, you should do a record count on that table and see what most of the fields come out to be related to in the related to field. I'd be curious because 7 gigs is a lot. How long have you been in Epicore?
Not that long, 3 years.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no,
that's-
something
we've been
has
on
to be
3
funky
years
there.
now. I don't
Here's
think
the
ours is that big, and we use it for things all the time. So
So
somebody
I
either might have a directive where they're writing stuff to it that doesn't need to be there.
So I just
I
queried
just-
my database, and I do have. I mean, it's been queried for 2. It's got a ton of get details as well, so it must be Epicore
Yeah.
automatically putting that in. I don't know if there's a setting to turn it off. That I don't know.
There is
But
a
I do
setting in
have a-
company. There's a setting in company configuration for tracking, creating an audit log when there are job changes, and I wonder if that's what's writing to the memo. It's on the module production job.
But we have that unchecked. That was one of the first
Do
things. we
you?
looked at.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say because that's the only place I can think of.
The other is global alerts. So without programming, you can set a global alert and it says this job has been released. Write a memo and it just does it.
Mm.
So that could be it. And, you know, again, you've got 30, 50 different global alerts that are out there.
Right, depends on how many you have turned on, maybe.
Yeah.
It may not even be global alerts because I looked at a database that's not used for too much. Get Details has 4,900 transactions. Check in and check out are 300 and 500,
Yeah.
And no memos are turned on.
and no global alerts. So I think Epicore is doing some things automatically.
Yep.
I would
and now
hazard.
It's not that bad. We have
Must be, yeah.
125,000 jobs and only 100,000 memos, so it's kind of keeping a 1-to-1 ratio really, unless you're. But
Yeah,
that's good to know.
I would guess you might be able to just delete the ones that are forget description and clean up a lot, but I'd have to test that.
Yeah. I know every time you check a part out and check it back in, it creates 2. It'll create one for the checkout, one for the check-in, and it really clogs up stuff.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
what
an
we're
engineer
seeing.
workbench you're doing that? Yeah.
And then I know if you have people that are check-out, check-in happy, we have those people, and I keep saying, just go to Method Master and look at it. Don't check it out to see what the revision looks like. Go to Method Tracker and take a look at it there. Oh, they say, oh, like, why are you checking parts out? Doesn't make sense. Oh, well, I wanted to see what this method had, what material was in it. I said, there's more ways to do it than check it in and check it out.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe it's related because we have companies and most of them share parts and we're not using global parts, so they're local. And like there's 3 million check-in, check-out rows in that table. There's 7.5 million get details. And well, get details on quote detail. Job head only has a 200,000. But yeah, I mean, we're not using the data and the system's not apparently using it. So technically we probably could consider not having it populated. But
Yeah, you might.
Go ahead.
I was going to say you might want to call Epicore support and just ask them, can I delete the rows in that start with, or not start with, but that are the,
Check in,
forget
check
if it was
out.
category, get disk.
Get details. Yep.
Yep. And see what they say. They would be in the best position to know if it would kill you off or, yeah, there's a fix for this or something.
I think
Maybe there's a data fix or something available.
Also a data direct, you can probably put a data directive on the ICE memo table and you say if the type is this, then don't write it.
Yeah, the memo description is get details, then simply just don't do the base, whatever. Yep.
Okay, thank you guys.
And then it looks like Don Fisher has a follow-up. Where is this checkbox that you're talking about in company config for the log file?
Company maintenance.
Company maintenance?
Yeah, don't get those too confused. Right? Company maintenance, not company config.
Correct, company maintenance, yep. And it's right there when you open company maintenance, top right. I would, yeah. Company maintenance general settings in the very top right of the screen. It says activity tracking, and there's a system activities and a personalization. And you want both of those unchecked. Again, unless you are really wanting to track everything everybody does in your system, which some people have to do because of things like socks and other stuff.
So right here, first thing when you come in.
And she's saying they may not have it because they're cloud.
Then you should not worry. You shouldn't have to worry about it. If you're cloud, then your database is mostly irrelevant. They manage your growth for you, right?
Yep.
Then you not need to worry about it.
Unlimited space.
If you're cloud, you don't care how big your database grows.
That's right.
That's their problem.
That's their problem. They can uncheck the box.
Okay, Laura Pepple threw out a question. How are you guys finding which tables have how many rows in each?
You can do a simple select count star on whatever your table is. If you have your access to your SQL, you can also right click on a database and there's a report that'll show you what are the top tables by size or by row count. And you can identify quickly growing ones. If you want a totally detailed query that will show you down to every table, how many records and what size it is, I can look that up for you. I've got it somewhere. But that's how you go about doing it in general.
Or you write a BAQ where you say group all against one record, like the part. You could just say group all, and then you can get your count that way. Add a calculated field with a count in there.
Okay, Fred, are you doing the chat questions?
What chat questions?
Okay, so that's what I was asking. I'm like, are you reading the chat questions? No, I'll go ahead and start.
I thought I handled everything in chat already.
Unrelated to this, Kelma, I did get, I think, like 2 or 3 messages, people asking when will the recording be available. They wanted to review some of the earlier sessions.
Well, seeing as how we were just talking about jobs and WIP, I'll crack it a little harder and see if Kevin can get the slicing and dicing done. Normally it takes a week or 2 for him to get all the segments broken out after we download it. I think right now we're up to 320 gigs, so.
So like a day, okay, got it.
It's a good sized video file.
I replied to most of them saying, look, about a week. So.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I gotta run. Good to see you. Have a good afternoon. It was
awesome.
Fun.
Thanks, Bruce.
So Adam Jones, you bailed on us last time, and today you come late, like at the end. What's going on? Me and Fred gave him a hard time last time because he was supposed to.
I was dealing with your friends in Australia.
Oh. Well, you're the analyst. I'm just a developer.
I'm
we're
just an
doing
analyst, but
implementation
I
in
didn't realize I
Australia.
got a promotion.
Moving
It's
on up.
doing an international implementation during COVID is not easy. Not being able to fly out and it's all remote. It's definitely has its challenges.
Laura, I posted a query that I've used in the past that'll show you the table size and row counts on every table inside of a database. You just have to run it in the database that you're looking to do on.
Laura, are you Cloud? I think she was Cloud.
She's Puck.
Wait, what is Puck?
Okay.
Sorry, Puck is a client. Puck Enterprise.
Puck Industries.
Or Puck Industries.
I was like, wait a minute now. Did we find out?
You remember those acronyms you talked about? We just
Yeah.
showed everybody's name.
I was like, geez. I was like, okay, we have cloud and we have on-prem and whatever the hell Puck is.
Puck.
It's cold out, hockey, I don't know.
Yeah. Puck is where you put your database at the end of the hockey field, and then you gotta hit the puck to get the data out.
Is there a way to include, Karen Total has a question out here, is there a way to include a part in MRP but prevent it from going on a sales order? You would have to put a BPM or a method directive on that sales order to prevent the user from putting a item on it. It would have to be a part in the system marked process for MRP. So it would have to be a part, but there's no way to stop people from selling it shy of putting a directive out there.
Yeah. I mean, you got to make a demand somehow for it.
Exactly. Right? Well, even if it was like a sub-assembly, you could just not want to sell the sub-assembly, but you have to have it out there for MRP to look at and see. I would just think the only way to stop it is
BPM on blockchain.
Astronomical price or a data directive or something. Because I have seen people put like $9 million on the sale for a part. If that shows up on an order, that never gets approved when the order acknowledgement goes out.
Yeah.
Has anyone related on that MRP topic? Has anyone ever? I saw a paragraph in Epicore's guide, and I never knew this. It says MRP can be customized, just like posting rules. And
it used to be in 9, you had hooks you could write on progress to customize it, but they did away with that in 10.
Yeah, okay. I'm like, I haven't seen that in the new, shy of a directive intercepting the calls.
Yeah, there were MRP hooks, like kind of like you do the EI stuff, Hassel, like the electronic interface files. They used to be in 9. You could have hooks that you write in .p files that you could drop into a folder, and would act as a hook inside MRP. But I actually was just looking at that a couple of days ago because we are, for some reason, trying to use MRP over here, and I wanted to be able to customize some of that behavior, and I think they did away with that function in 10.
Yeah, I saw it in the guides. They left it in, but just curious.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's in there, but I couldn't find any documentation on it. And I looked on the places where the old hooks used to be, and there's nothing there. So.
Yeah, I know the EDI hooks, they moved to BPMs now instead of the P files, but I haven't seen anything from MRP. Was just curious.
Scott Williamson suggests making the part a phantom.
Yeah, but he also answers his own question. Nobody will ever figure out how to use it either. Only the phantom knows. Had to get that in there.
What if you set it to run? What if you set the part
you're making a phantom? You won't be able to do automatic POs and everything else against it, right? That seems, yeah.
Well, you can't do any inventory on a phantom, so I don't think MRP is going to run for it either.
Right.
As a stopgap, you could set the part to run out. That'll at least give the user a warning message.
I think if you set the part to run out, MRP will also not generate POs against it.
Yeah, MRP is not going to create a job for a part marked run out, neither would PO suggestions.
No, that specifically removes it from MRP doing the things, unless you have set an alternate, and then it will use an alternate part for that. But
Karen's got a follow-up. She's not written a BPM before. Do you have to have a list of parts to check, or can I bump up against the price list?
list of parts to check. I would put a UD field on the part record that just says, not available on sales order, and then check that on your BPM. That would probably be the easiest thing. So just a Boolean checkbox field into the part entry screen that you can check it and say, don't make this available in order entry. And then order entry, when you type in a part number, it calls a method called change part number on the business object. And I would put a BPM there, pre-processing, that says if the part that you typed in has that checkbox set to true, then raise an exception that says you cannot sell this part directly or something like that.
Or just if the part number on the order line equals this. If you're only looking at one part number.
Right. I mean, you could hard code one part number, but I suspect that they're probably going to have a handful of, I'm assuming these are components that she doesn't want added to the order directly, right?
We never hard code part numbers or anything like that. That's a mantra here.
Right.
If you're going to
magic
do
strings
something,
are
do
bad.
it like Jose and put a checkbox out there, because I can guarantee you'll start with one and then there's going to be another one somewhere down the line. And who's going to go back and fix that and remember that it's in that BPM?
Or even easier, just what's that you can use maybe the class, make it or product group or whatever, and just give it an if product group or class, whatever.
A part class?
Then, yeah, because they already exist. You just gotta make one.
Yeah. Yeah, you could do that for a part class. Yeah.
Karen, I went ahead and
Adam Jones, don't we add like a couple of part numbers like install or freight charge as are like part numbers that you don't really sell, but we kind of utilize them?
Yes.
Karen, I unmuted you. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, you can join in the dialogue here.
Which Karen are you talking to?
Karen Total.
Guys, I have to step out, so thank you for allowing the Michigan Indiana group to be part of your meeting. And it's been great. Thanks.
Awesome, Beth. And I'll probably try and touch base with you towards the end of next week or the beginning of the week after to kind of put together the group leaders meeting.
That would be awesome.
Thanks, Beth.
Yep.
See you,
Bye.
Beth.
Can you hear me?
Now we can, Karen.
Now you can?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, what the idea was, we wanted to see if we could make this BPM say if this part number is not on the price list, that then it shouldn't be sold.
Ah, got it. So it's not a component issue, it's that you only want to sell parts that are approved kind of thing.
Right.
Or parts on the price list.
Parts on the price list, because it is kind of, we wouldn't put components on the price list.
That's perfectly easy. On your order detail, the order line, you're going to end up doing a method directive on there. And if the price list is blank, it's out of there. You don't allow the user to save it. And you throw up a message that says, this part is not found on a price list for this customer. This way, if the part is on a different customer's price list and the field has a value, Epicore will put that in when it does the price list logic.
Okay,
And
so
I know
because
you
we have a
didn't do
standard price list and we have some special ones, so we just kind of want to bump it up against the standard one.
Yep, that's common.
And I know you don't have any experience with BPMs, but I think this one you can just solve it probably using the widgets. And if you read the help file, they actually have a couple case statements of how to throw an exception and so on. So.
Okay. Well, we're in the middle of upgrading to E10, so we might just have them help us with that.
Oh, you're still E9 or Vantage?
Yes.
8 or 9? Which one are you coming from?
We're coming from 9.
Okay.
And we're going to 10.
It'll be a good change.
You can also put that in your 9 because that's supported directives also the same way.
Okay, we're trying to do as much in 9 before the conversion, so I'll see if we can't get our Epicore person to figure that out.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a difficult one, and there are a lot of samples writing that type of BPM that I'm going to say is still in the Epi E10 help users, isn't it, in the libraries?
The Yahoo groups.
Yeah,
Yahoo group is
I would say-
archived in Epi anything help.
So Karen, that's available online, the samples for that, and I'm sure someone has already written something identical to that. Are you on the online group?
No, I'm not, but we have other people in the group that are.
Okay,
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
awesome. I think we have actually almost gotten done.
I think so. Plus it's 4:30, so.
We only ran a half
for
hour
some of
over.
us.
We are so early this time. This is the earliest we've ever been late.
All right. Would like to remind anybody that's still online, when the meeting ends, a survey will pop up as well. I think it will appear either tonight or tomorrow in your inbox if you take the time to fill that out. That helps us know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, how we can improve. And I believe there's a question on there for topic suggestions of things you want to see in future meetings. So we appreciate that so that we can gear the content towards what you find valuable. Thank you, Hasso and Jose and Adam for joining us. And Bruce, if Bruce already left, and Beth and Christine. Definitely helps having multiple people online to answer these questions.